In this video, we're going to be talking about paddle tails and swim baits, and more specifically, how different size paddle tails, the type of plastic they're made out of, the density of that plastic can have an effect on the tail action of that lure. So let's say you're using a bigger paddle tail and you want to retrieve it really slow, but you notice it's just dragging through the water. That tail isn't kicking. It's probably because you don't have it rigged up properly based on how you want to fish that lure, or you may need to be using something else so you can get the right action and presentation out of that. So we're going to talk about that in this video, more specifically why that happens and how to adjust to get some more strikes. So the three lures that I have here, first up is our 5-inch Mulligan Bomber. This is a 5-inch paddle tail, very thick plastic, has a bigger paddle on the back, so you get a lot of good thumping action out of that paddle tail. Our next size down is going to be the 4-inch Mulligan. Same pretty much profile, it's just a 4-inch version. And then we have our 2.0 paddle tail, which is a 3.5-inch, our smallest size. And these lures will have different actions depending on how you fish them and how you want to fish them. So for example, our 2.0 paddle tail, when you retrieve this, the tail kicks a lot because, as you can see, that tail section is very long and narrow. So it has a lot of room for movement. So if you want to do a fast retrieve or a slow retrieve, this is going to be the one to go with, because you can do either or and still get a good amount of good tail kicking action. And also, when this lure sinks, that is something that also helps with a strike. You know, as this lure sinks, that tail kicks, and you will see that some other lures with a little bit thicker plastic, when they sink, the tail won't kick. It will just dive down, and then when you go to pull it up really fast, that's when the tail will kick. So again, it really comes down to how much water resistance is required to get that tail kicking. If it's a very thick, paddle tail or swim bait, and it has a pretty thick tail section, you're going to need to use a heavier weight to get that tail kicking, because that lure needs to move faster through the water and have more resistance to get that tail kicking. So if you're fishing in an area with no current, definitely pay attention to the weight that you're using based on the depth that you're fishing. It will vary from place to place depending on the depth and the water conditions. But if you're fishing in current and you're retrieving against the current, you're going to get more resistance against that tail, which is going to help get that tail kicking. So again, if you notice these lures are just diving through the water or just gliding through the water and the tail's not kicking, number one, you're not retrieving it fast enough, and or number two, you don't have a heavy enough weight to get that lure down in the water column and get a lot of good water resistance against that tail and be able to have a good enough speed to get that lure moving. And one last thing to consider when you're rigging up these paddle tails is the type of hook you're using. So really you have two options. You have a weedless hook, weighted hook. This is our Haas Helix hook. Or you have an open face jig head, or you can have a weedless jig head, such as our Haas football weedless jig head or the Haas round eye weedless jig head. This is our round eye jig head. You can pick all these lures and hooks up at fishstrong.com, by the way. And if you're one of our insiders, be sure to take advantage of that discount you get on all tackle and gear. So let's think about these two types of hooks. All right, so you have a weedless hook that has the weight on the belly or the shank of the hook. When your paddle tail falls or sinks, it's going to sink a lot slower because it's sort of belly weighted, so it's going to sort of glide a little bit more than it would sink straight down, as opposed to with a jig head, where that lure is now going to be basically nose heavy, so it's going to dive straight down, and it's going to dive down faster, which will get that tail kicking because, again, the faster the lure moves, the more resistance against that tail, gets that tail kicking, triggers those fish to strike. So if you find that a weedless sort of weighted hook is not cutting it, maybe switch over to a jig head. If you're fishing in structure, go with the weedless jig head. And if you're fishing open water, go with a regular jig head. That'll get that lure moving a lot better, a lot faster through the water to get that tail moving. So make sure those paddle tails are rigged up properly to get the right presentation out of them. That way you're not missing out on strikes and you don't end up going home getting skunked. And speaking of getting skunked, even though you might have them rigged up properly, maybe you're not doing the right retrieve. And that's where we can help you out at saltstrong.com, where not only do we sell these lures on our shop page at fishstrong.com, but they've been proven, they've been tested, and we actually show you how, when, and where to use each type of lure that we sell on our shop page. So be sure to check us out at saltstrong.com, and fishstrong.com is where you can find all of our tackle and gear and insiders. Keep in mind you do get a discount on all tackle and gear, so be sure to take advantage of that. If you have any questions or any additional tips you would like to share when it comes to rigging up Paddletails, let us know in the comments down below. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.